Call to order the June 19th meeting of the Brentwood Board of Aldermen. If you'd all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Alderman Dimmitt.
Here.
Alderman Kramer.
Present.
Alderman Lang.
Here.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Here.
Alderwoman O'Neill. Here. Alderman Plufka. Alderwoman Sims.
Here.
Alderman Weggie.
Here.
Okay, item number 3 on tonight's agenda is approval of this evening's agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Your Honor, can we get bathroom breaks every 4 hours on this agenda?
For the board's information, my goal is to have us in closed session by 8:30. So
Aggressive.
I'll be moving things right along.
Challenge accepted.
If there are no changes to tonight's agenda, are there any objections to approving by acclamation? Seeing none, it'll be approved by acclamation. Item number 4 on the agenda is consideration and approval of the May 15th minutes. You should have received a revised version of the minutes sitting in front of you. Are there any changes or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, are there any objections to approval by acclamation? Seeing none, they'll be approved by acclamation. Good. Item number 5 on tonight's agenda, we have with us a full house of public safety. We're going to start with Interim Chief McIntyre. He's going to be presenting recognition to Officer Nick Lang and Officer Ben Drexel, and I'll let him explain. I already know the story, and it's a great one, but I won't steal his thunder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Aldermen. I'd like to call your attention to Officers Ben Drexel and Nick Lang. If I could just bear with me for just a minute, if I could read just a little bit to you. In reference to the John J. McAtee Award, it's offered by since 1987, the Mental Health of America of Eastern Missouri has formally recognized police officers who have shown concern and compassion when assisting a person in psychiatric crisis. Since 1989, this act of recognition was officially named the John J. McAtee Award. Over the years, more than 600 officers have been recognized. Nominees must be a commissioned police officer. The act cited must have involved someone with a psychiatric illness, and the officer must have gone above and beyond the call of duty. The officer must be nominated by his department supervisor or an employee of the mental health agency, hospital room, service agency, or those who have direct knowledge of it. In terms of what actually occurred, a brief summary. On April 30th, 2016, at about 9:18 a.m., Officers Ben Drexel and Nick Lang received a radio assignment of a suicidal subject in the area of the Brentwood Promenade Court. According to the report, which was from the suicide hotline, the only information they had on the subject was his first name and the fact that he was driving an SUV. While talking with the suicidal subject, on the hotline call taker advised that the subject refused to provide any other information. The last known location was near the Brentwood Promenade Court. Once the caller disconnected from the hotline, it was effectively ending any chance to locate this particular person in need. With a limited description, Officers Lang and Drexel began searching the area. Officer Drexel responded to an area service station where he spoke to the manager, who recalled the subject with a similar name had come in for some auto repairs. The manager indicated to Officer Drexel that he was concerned because the subject seemed mentally unstable. From the work order, Officer Drexel was able to obtain the subject's full name, vehicle, including license plate and cell phone number. From that information, Officer Drexel requested a lookup of the subject's out-of-state driver's license. With the caller's driver's license picture in hand, Officers Drexel and Lang began to canvass the area. As they continued the search, the subject called the hotline again. This time he stated he was on the 10th floor of a parking garage. Due to the fact that the subject was not from the area, in fact traveling from the East Coast to the West Coast, it was difficult for him to describe his exact location. Based on this information, Officers Drexel and Lang proceeded to the Metro parking garage where they located the subject leaning against the ledge of the 10th floor. The subject was in emotional distress and contemplating suicide. He said he was traveling across the country when his car broke down. He was out of money and had nowhere to stay. The subject went on to tell the officers that he was extremely depressed and didn't have anything to live for and had attempted suicide before. Officers Drexel and Lang relied on their training to de-escalate the situation, and the subject ultimately agreed to come away from the ledge and talk with the officers. Officer Lang subsequently transported the subject to an area hospital. The quick thinking of these officers combined with the effective de-escalation techniques saved a dangerous situation from ending tragically. All of this information is documented in Brentwood Police Report 16-459. Officers Ben Drexel and Nick Lang are another example of the quiet, compassionate, hard work that our police officers do every day. I am proud that on June 7th, they were honored with the John J. McAtee Award at the Missouri Athletic Club. I would like to call the work of these officers to the attention of Mr. Mayor and the Board of Aldermen. Thank you.
That's good.
Should we just continue along, sir?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure.
Yep, absolutely.
The next item I'd like to bring to your attention is a particular date, a particular incident that occurred on Saturday, November the 5th, 2016. This also involves officers Drexel and Lang. On Saturday, November 5th, 2016, approximately 4:28 a.m., Brentwood police officers Ben Drexel and Nick Lang received a radio assignment of a person down at a business located in the 1500 block of South Hanley Road. Upon arrival, they were assisted by Richmond Heights police officer Jeff Delaney, and they located a subject unconscious on the floor. The subject had no signs of life, was not breathing, and appeared to be dead. The officers then began CPR. They continued to update East Central Dispatch of the subject's status and requested that information be relayed to EMS. The officers continued CPR and managed to restore a faint pulse. However, the subject remained unresponsive. Once EMS arrived, the subject was treated by paramedics, and by that time, he was loaded into the ambulance. As he was being loaded into the ambulance, he was actually talking with first responders. It was at this time that it was determined that the subject did in fact have an infectious disease. Police officers, by their very nature of the job, are often exposed to hazardous environments, and this particular event is no different. The fact that these officers took quick action saved the man's life. At this time, I'd like to read to you a chief's letter of commendation to be presented to both officers. On Saturday morning, November 5th, 2016, at approximately 4:28 hours, you were radio dispatched to the McDonald's restaurant located at 1595 South Hanley Road for a subject who was overdosed on heroin and was not responsive and in cardiac arrest. You and Officer Thomas R. Nick Lang, DSN 151, who also had responded, were assisted by Richmond Heights Police Officer Jeff Delaney, DSN 178, realized the gravity of the situation and immediately began cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Despite no visible signs of life, you continued to administer CPR until EMS arrived. It should be noted that the subject was an intravenous drug user and was infected with hepatitis C. However, this did not deter you or the other officers from rendering life-saving aid. Through your efforts and those of your fellow officers, you were able to establish the subject's vital signs. Your quick and decisive efforts directly resulted in saving the subject's life. It is exactly this type of selfless action that personifies your character, and I am proud to present you with this letter of commendation dated May 5th, 2017.
Good job, gentlemen.
I failed to mention that because of their heroic actions and life-saving award, they've been awarded the life-saving award, which will be authorized to wear on their uniforms anytime.
Excellent.
Before we get to the next police promotion, I just want to say I was privileged and very happy that Interim Chief McIntyre invited me down to the McAfee Awards on June 7th. I went down to the Missouri Athletic Club, and I got to tell you, it's a really amazing, this award is a really big deal. The stories I heard that afternoon were absolutely amazing about what police officers, A, have to deal with, and B, how they deal with it in a way that's caring, compassionate, and I only wish that the media would take an interest in those types of stories as much as they seem to take interest in some of the others. But I will say that to be in the company of the people that were honored that day is really a big deal, and really proud of those gentlemen for that. So.
The next presentation that we have involves two of our most recent promotions. And this involves Corporal Todd Lambert. He began his career with the Brentwood Police Department on August 9, 2004. He formerly served as a police officer with the City of St. Louis. He's a member of our firearms training staff and was appointed and certified as one of our department's field training officers. Corporal Matt Morgan began his career with the Brentwood Police Department on September 14, 2006. Prior to that, he served as a deputy sheriff with the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. He is also a member of our firearms training staff and a certified field training officer from the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department. I'd like to recognize both of them. They were promoted to the rank of corporal on April 13, 2017 by former Chief Fitzgerald.
All right, that concludes the police department portion of our award ceremony. I'm going to invite Chief Curtin up to do the fire department portion of the ceremony.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to read a brief background on Robert Flamian. Robert was recently promoted to the rank of lieutenant. He's been with our department since 2001 and scored overall best candidate on our recent promotion process for the rank of lieutenant. Robert began his career with the Brentwood Fire Department as a firefighter paramedic in 2001. Prior to joining Brentwood, Robert worked for the city of Shrewsbury as a firefighter paramedic for a year and a half. Robert was also a volunteer firefighter with the St. Clair Fire Protection District and worked as a paramedic at Merrimack Ambulance District, both in Franklin County, Missouri. Robert received his paramedic training through IHM Health Studies Center and graduated the St. Louis County Fire Academy in 1999. Robert's hobbies are spending time outside, hunting, and fishing. Robert, would you like to come up? Chief Niemeyer, would you please join us? Chief Niemeyer is going to pin Robert's badge on.
I would like to just say that to you all too. But anyway, we hired Robert in 2001. Captain O'Loughlin's back in the back here from Shrewsbury, and we came in and robbed him. He still talks to me. But I think it's a wonderful thing that Robert got promoted, and I'll tell you why. He's an outstanding paramedic and he's an outstanding fireman. A lot of times, one is a little better at one than the other, but he's the same at both. And he asked me to pin his badge on him. I don't think I could have a higher honor. You The only thing I regret is that I didn't wear my dress uniform. It's been pointed out to me on several occasions. But, anyway, Robert, I tell you what, you work for a great man, you work for two great men. And I think it's wonderful that you're a lieutenant, and you deserve it, okay? Now I'm gonna try, it'll be a little easier on here, I think, than the actual, you know, I did smash my hand today.
Don't draw blood.
Yeah. I'm glad told me not to call him. I don't have it right. Oh, here we go. Jerry, come over here and help.
I've been practicing.
Boutonniere.
And I'd like to mention to the board, truly an outstanding employee. Always has been. In fact, you know, I wondered about him once in a while because he was so darn nice to people, and I mean, I think that's great. But we always get these calls about what an outstanding job he did on this call or that call, you know. You never know a greater thing to have. But anyway, congratulations, Robert. Thank you.
Far enough over?
Too much shine. Good job.
Okay.
Where are you going?
All right. And give everybody a chance who wants to leave, they can leave.
Move around.
Really, it's a thrilling meeting coming up. You're missing it.
Left to left, left to left.
You know, all right. Number 6 on the agenda this evening, we have a proclamation, and I believe is it June or July? July is Parks and Recreations Month. And I've asked Alderman Kramer
Yes,
if he would be so kind as to read the proclamation for us.
would be happy to. In recognition of the designation of July as Park and Recreation Month, whereas parks and recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including the city of Brentwood, Missouri. And whereas our parks and recreation are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in all of our communities, ensuring the health of all citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of a community and region. And whereas parks and recreation programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, provide therapeutic recreation services for those who are mentally or physically disabled, and also improve the mental and emotional health of all citizens. Whereas parks and recreation programs increase the community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas parks and recreation areas are fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community, and whereas parks and natural recreation areas improve water quality, protect groundwater, prevent flooding, improve the quality of the air we breathe, provide vegetative buffers to development, and produce habitat for wildlife. And whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month, and whereas the City of Brentwood recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources, now therefore I, Mayor Christopher Thornton, by the authority vested in me as Mayor of the City of Brentwood, Missouri, and on behalf of the Board of Aldermen, do hereby recognize the month of July as Park and Recreation Month in the City of Brentwood.
Thank you. I just would add to that we are very lucky to have Eric Grunenfelder, who is our Director of Parks and Recreations, and he and his team do a fantastic job. So we're very lucky to have him, and I'm very happy to declare July our Parks and Recreations month. Item number 7 on the agenda, we have no public hearings this evening. Item number 8, we have 2 bids. The first one is a hazardous material survey and third-party monitoring, and I believe that's Dan Gummersheimer.
In your packet, you should have the information for the bids themselves. Last month, we opened bids. We received 5 sealed bids, in particular for air monitoring, abatement monitoring. This would be for the 3 homes that the city owns. There's the 2 on Rosalie, 8754, which is the Historical Society, 8758, which is between the post office and that particular parcel. And then the other one, which would be over on Eulalie, 8751 Eulalie, across from the fire department. So of those 5, the lowest and most qualified was Precision Analysis. Within that bid, they will take care of any of the hazardous materials survey that we need to do for those 3 parcels, including identification of asbestos-containing materials, if there's any lead, mercury, anything of that nature. And then whenever we do the actual demolition later on, they would be responsible for the air monitoring and then the abatement documents as far as chain of custody and things of that nature. So regarding the financial side, I've listed the account numbers. We've got some savings, so we're able to afford this particular task. So in Public Works, the recommendation was to the full board for an ordinance approving the execution of an agreement between the city and Precision Analysis. Don't know if you have any specific questions. That's kind of the
Are there any questions about the
boil
bid?
down.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Next up on the bids is the fiscal year 2017 asphalt mill and overlay street project. And what do you know? It's Dan's department again.
I'll just stay put. This particular one, this is for 2017. We had 25 base bid streets and 3 bid alternates. Those bids, we received 7 sealed bids last month. We opened those, looked through each one of those for completeness. Everything was complete. It boiled down to just 2 of them. One of them is a local contractor, West Contracting, and what we were planning on doing are the 25 base bid streets plus alternate 3, which would be the south entrance into the promenade. The rough cost is $612,000 for alternate 3 plus those 25 streets. And all 25 are actually in the budget. They're actually slightly below the budget. For fiscal year 2017, we had a budget for the 25 streets at $590,000. It's just a little bit less. And then we also have another line item which carries roughly $100,000 for concrete streets, sidewalks, things of that nature, which we'll be able to utilize for the promenade south entrance. So costs are covered. And again, this went through the Public Works Committee with the recommendation for West Contracting, first and second reading for bid alternate 3 plus the 25 base bid streets.
Are there any questions about this bid? Alderman Lockmiller.
Dan, I forgot to ask at Public Works, on that alternate 3 there, are you going back with the current asphalt condition, or are you going to go back with concrete?
No, that's a good question. We're actually going with concrete full depth because that asphalt, I just think because of the volume, the amount of traffic that's through there, if we put asphalt, I'm sure that in a few years it'll start to rut and wear out. So we're actually going to rip it completely out and put new concrete curbs and concrete pavement.
And then we had a concern on Salem because they only have one way in and out there. Are you going to have like a public meeting for all the residents on these different streets to maybe just give them a layout as to what will happen to their streets?
Yes, the way it was done last year, we had it over at the rec center. At least that's what staff's telling me. We had an open house meeting. Plus, we'll actually do written notices to the people that are affected. So whenever we sit down with West, we would go through the schedule, figure out which streets are affected, and then give people advance notice, both written and then an open house type meeting.
Great. Thanks, John.
Any other questions about the bid? Okay, thank you, Dan. Item number 9 on the agenda, hearing of any matter of public interest upon the request of any person present. If anyone in the audience would care to come forward and address the board, you'll be given 3 minutes. If you could just give us your name and your address, that'd be helpful.
Hi, my name's Beth Ehrman. I live at 8637 Henrietta Avenue. I'm here tonight to talk about pedestrian safety. Every evening after work, 365 days a year, I walk my German Shepherd up to 3 miles. Because of the distance we need to walk, we cover a good portion of Brentwood, and we often have to cross Brentwood Boulevard. I always press the button at any of the crosswalks and wait for the pedestrian signal to cross. However, this does not ensure my safety. I have had people speed up to turn in front of me while we are crossing. I have had people pull up and stop in front of us while we are crossing. And recently I had a driver yell at us to get out of the crosswalk and was nearly hit. And we had the pedestrian signal. This happens most frequently at Litzinger and White crossings. However, the crossings within the neighborhoods where there aren't any lights, including Dorothy, Eulalie, Rosalie, and any of the crossings on High School Drive, are nearly as bad. Speeding is rampant. Few people stop at the stop signs, even around the school where there are signs that say it's the state law to stop and crosswalk. I've had many incidents in which drivers have sped through stop signs as we are preparing to cross or have turned right in front of us. And I will no longer attempt to cross Brentwood at Manchester, as there have been too many close calls. It is state law to stop for a pedestrian in a crosswalk, but there are a few signs in Brentwood that remind drivers of such law. I contacted my aldermen, Brandon and Sonny, in the spring, and former Chief Fitzgerald about this, but I wanted to bring this to public attention. I realize that many of the speeders and stop sign runners are my neighbors, but one of these neighbors is eventually going to hit me, my dog, or any of the children who are out, or anyone else walking their dog. Is that what it's going to take to bring attention to this personal safety hazard? I love Brentwood, and I want to feel safe walking in Brentwood, but right now I do not. I would invite any of you who would be interested in walking with us any evening to join us so you can get firsthand experience of the risk we put ourselves in every evening.
Thank you. Anyone else care to address the board?
Good evening, board members. My name is Reed Evans. I live at 8703 Rosalie. And I'm here tonight to talk about the change in the no parking here to corner sign on the swim club road near Rosalie Avenue. We'd heard some rumors about them maybe doing some additional work, altering some of the parking regulations there. Recently, a lot of things there's been a lot of change there. There's permanent no parking on the east side. And then originally it was determined to put this no parking here to corner sign about 30 feet or 25 feet from the corner. The fire chief recommended that as far as having enough room to get down the street and around parked cars. And we'd heard some rumors about maybe doing some other things there on the street, but I hadn't heard anything from any of my aldermen or anything definite. And then last Thursday, I think, they put a new no parking here to corner sign about 100 feet or 95 feet from the corner, and we weren't really sure why, and we were concerned because we'd been using that parking space up to the sign to park our cars. It's convenient. Instead of we can't park on our side of Rosalie, so we don't have to cross the street if we parked there, and we used our side entrance to come and go from our house, so it was very convenient. The sign's about another 60 feet farther down the pool road, which isn't a long distance, but it did, it creates a little bit of an inconvenience. And so I was curious as to why it was moved. I called Brandon and asked him, and he, correct me if I'm wrong, Brandon, mentioned that there was like a study done, like a safety study done on that corner for traffic. And he said it was determined that it would be best if they moved the sign back to this 95-foot point. So I finished my conversation with Brandon, got off the phone, and I called my wife to tell her, that I'd talked to him. I told her I was going to call him. And she said, well, I'm curious as to what some of the rationale was behind moving it, what they had in the study, if there was a formal study and there was a hard copy of that or what. So she called the city and spoke to somebody at Public Works and asked, do you have a copy of this study, anything related to that, any information? And they said, we don't know anything about a safety study. We moved that sign because of complaints from the swim club. So, but further than that, he said, their main concern was the traffic issues on the nights of the swim meets. And there's a lot of traffic on the nights of the swim meets, especially if they have a big crowd. There can be a lot of people there. So I thought, well, I could understand with the increased traffic how you would need or like more room there right at the corner, coming around the corner. But I didn't understand why you would make that kind of a change in the parking. And there was no stipulation about it being no parking here to corner from June 1st or from Memorial Day to Labor Day, which would include the time that the pool club is open. It just seemed like it was a permanent thing year-round. And I thought, well, if there's just 4 swim meets per season, to make this change and have it a year-round change in the parking there on the street, it just seemed a little excessive, like there was a better way to handle that. So at that time, I started thinking, there's got to be maybe something else we could do. Exactly what, it's not up to me. But I kind of thought back to something that the swim club had done before, that it was using temporary no parking, and they had done that for a while with just some plain wooden stakes and a paper no parking sign the days that they had the swim meets, and it worked. People, respected those signs. So I thought about, why couldn't we just leave the no parking here to corner sign, the original one where it was, and then on the nights of the meets, have some temporary signage of some kind, extended as far as they want, to create this larger opening there at the entrance to the swim club road, some sort of portable signage or something, and then put it up in the morning before the meet starts, give people that might have been parked there and didn't know about the meet a chance to move, and then take it down after the meet or the morning after the meet. And then that way we could still utilize that parking there, and the swim club, when they need the space, they would have the space. So that's about the long and short of it. A little confused about there's some, conflict of reasons for moving the sign. But regardless of that, it seems like there's a more equitable solution. I would like to think, and I would hope that we could probably, try to work something out along those lines.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Goodwin.
Hello, everyone. I am Jacob Goodwin. I live in Brentwood, over on 2468 Helen. I also build in Brentwood. My company is Orin Construction. I would like to talk a little bit about a change that I think. I can't hear myself. Can you guys hear me?
You're good.
About a little bit about a change I know we're thinking about how we encourage contractors and builders or subcontractors even to stick with these guidelines about keeping noise down, working between the hours of 7 and 5, and not crossing any noise violation rules out there. As a citizen of Brentwood with 4 young kids, I can say I get very irritated when there are large machines and people making noise before 7 o'clock and after 5 o'clock or midnight even, because we don't get a lot of sleep in the house with 4 kiddos. And as a builder in Brentwood, I consider myself fortunate to be able to work in my backyard, and respecting community members and my neighbors is a large part of my MO as a business person and someone who lives in the community. I would encourage us as we think about, because I agree, let me back up, I agree that there is something that we have to do to hold builders and contractors and subcontractors accountable to this noise violation, this timeline of when we can perform noisy work in homes. But I'd encourage us to think about how is it possible to regulate that process better? And the reason I say that is, if I put on my builder hat and I'm ordering materials from a supply house, I can say to the person in the warehouse or the salesperson or the manager, hey guys, I live in Brentwood or any other municipality, and I cannot take a delivery before 7 a.m. That person may say, okay, we'll see what we can do. And because they have a schedule and a disconnect between what they can allow and encourage and adhere to and what someone who's actually delivering the materials can do, that message may never get to the delivery driver. Or the delivery driver is incentivized to make so many deliveries on time, and in fact penalized if they don't. So they'll get to the job site at 6 a.m. It happens with waste disposal, Johnny on the spots as well, and they'll cause a bunch of noise. And I in fact, have been called, because that's happened on my job sites, to my displeasure. And what I don't know is how we can enforce that, what we can do to get the third party, so to speak, to help us adhere to those rules and regulations as well. I'm all for some sort of system that is practical and makes sense. I myself want to do a better job of serving the community, and I don't want people to not want to talk to me when I see them at the pool or the park. So of course I'm here for personal reasons as well. But I don't know if it's fair also then to penalize a builder if they're at least trying to make those accommodations, and they can't necessarily control what a third party does, how they participate in our regulations. And that's it.
Thank you. Anyone else care to address the board this evening? Don't worry, you'll get another chance. All right. Item number 10 on the agenda, I don't believe we have any unfinished business. Seeing none. Item number, sorry, I skipped over, would any alderman care to respond to any of those comments?
I'll take some.
My fault, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Alderman Waggy.
First of all, Beth, thanks a lot for coming back in. So I remember when you sent over your concerns earlier in the spring. I would say that we share them. I am shocked that somebody would yell at you with that dog. I've seen you walking around our neighborhood, so I'm surprised at that. But I would say that is something that's very important to us, and we're still continuing to try to find a way to do it. Interesting data point that you think when we see state law to stop in the crosswalks doesn't seem to help, because Reed, you and I were talking about that 3 days ago as maybe a solution to fix that. So I think that's something maybe we need to discuss at public safety, or I don't know, maybe, I hate to say cultural shifts, but some towns that everybody knows that when you step off that curb, everybody's going to stop, and we don't seem to have that culture here. So I don't know if there's ideas we can start thinking about, of ways to get to that where it's not even a question. And then Reed, so just a couple things about clarification. So when you and I talked, it was the recommendation of our traffic engineer to move it back that distance. So that was what was followed through. There was no traffic study necessarily that was done. That was the recommendation from the traffic engineer. I did check tonight on the way down here during the meet, and all the no parking was being respected at that time during the meet. So I've asked BOLA and staff to make sure that we are enforcing those codes there where we have put them. So appreciate your input as well. And Jacob, thanks for coming.
Anyone else?
Certainly.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
I'll respond to the traffic problem too, because living in Brentwood Forest, we find High School Drive is a racetrack in the morning and the afternoon. Slowing down is a good thing, but stopping just doesn't happen sometimes. So we appreciate the police cars that are parked there or stopped there. It does seem to do something. That's not a 24/7 possibility, however. So yes, we need to do something. It's not just Brentwood residents who are doing that, it's people who are cutting through our city. So it is an issue.
Alderman Kramer.
Yes, Your Honor. Wanted to speak to Jacob's comments a few moments ago about the construction guidelines. When those were, I know we're going to speak about this coming up, Bill 6125 revised. When those were first created, a lot of the language was borrowed and further refined from Clayton's regulations. One of the tenets of that set of guidelines was that they should be posted at the job site for all third parties to be made aware. then I understand some of the first, maybe the first delivery or the first times they get a chance to come to the job site, they might be unaware. But if they are actually posted, and I believe in Clayton it's at the front of the job site, so that's very clear when they enter the job site. If they choose to read them, they're made aware of the construction guidelines and the time frame and so forth. So I would just ask that maybe as, I know we're going to discuss this later on, as these permits are issued for the various job sites, that there's a reminder that the guidelines be posted as required. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Dimmitt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just address Ms. Herman or Herman. I'm 2 houses west of high school on Pine. I've lived there for 15 years. I know exactly what you're talking about. Excuse me, I see it on both high school and Pine. The joke in our neighborhood is that stop signs are merely a suggestion, and this is an issue that we've been dealing with for a number of years. I've been on this board now for 18 months or thereabouts. I will tell you, I'm happy to report that this board did pass, for the very first time, a procedure for the installation of traffic calming measures. And I'm not suggesting that means speed bumps throughout the town, but there are a number of different tools that are now available that, by petitioning from a citizen, I believe we can start the ball rolling. So I would encourage you to talk to your Alderwoman Sunny Sims, who's on the public safety, and she can probably help you out, find out exactly what you can do.
I also, just to add to that, I believe that those things can also be invoked at the discretion of the traffic engineer of the city. And so we do have some new tools available that are more readily available than they might have been in the past. So I think definitely in conversation with Alderwoman Sims might prove useful on that score. On the building front, I'm just going to go right ahead and get on the record with this. I appreciate everything Jacob said, and really what it boils down to is this, right? How do we protect the rights of the citizens to enjoy what they're entitled to, which is the hours? I think the goal of the ordinance that we're going to consider tonight is exactly the same as the goal of our ordinances with respect to public safety, and that is voluntary compliance. We don't want to ticket anyone. We don't want to hold any contractor accountable for the misbehavior of their subs. What we want is voluntary compliance. We don't want anybody to violate the ordinance. But unfortunately, that happens, and when it does, it really does, it becomes a quality of life issue for the people who've done nothing more than have a house that's next to a house that's being built. And at the end of the day, if I have to choose between holding a contractor liable for the action of their sub or answering to that person that, hey, you're just going to have to put up with it because they ignored our ordinance, I got to go with the resident on that one. And the contractor's just going to have to bear that risk that their sub is going to screw up. I understand your point completely, and I like I said, I think the goal of the ordinance is absolutely voluntary compliance. It's to put the onus on the contractor to make sure that the sub complies insofar as he's possible or she's possible. But at the end of the day, who are we going to hold responsible in the cases where it doesn't happen? And I think the answer is, the people who are doing the work, or creating the problem. And that's where we got to be on that one. But you guys may feel differently, but I just thought I'd get that out now because it was going to come out later anyway. All right. Any other on that? All right. Item number 11 on the agenda is bills to be given a second reading. The first bill is under item 11A, which is bill number 6131. Mr. City Attorney, can we have second reading by title only, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Second reading of Bill 6131, an ordinance amending the zoning map of the city of Brentwood to rezone certain property numbered 1693 and 1695 South Hanley Road from LID Light Industrial District to UD Urban Development and establishing the effective date of this ordinance.
And Alder Kramer, do we have a synopsis?
Yes, Your Honor. Bill number 6131, our second reading, covers once again the rezoning from light industrial to urban development district at the property located 1693, 1695 South Hanley Road. And this ordinance covers the granting of that rezoning approval for EQH Brentwood LLC for the property at those two addresses from LID to UD Development District to allow for the construction of a 7-story hotel and parking garage at that address. The 1693 and 1695 South Handley Road parcels combined are 1.42 acres in size. Our Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed the rezoning request at their May 10th, 2017 meeting and voted as follows: 12 yes, 0 no to rezone the property to urban development. All the language contained in Bill number 6131.
Thank you. Chair would entertain a motion to perfect.
So moved, Your Honor.
Second. It's been moved and seconded that the board perfect Bill number 6131 into ordinance form. Is there any discussion from the board? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call, please.
Alderman Dennett.
Yes.
Alderman Kramer.
Yes.
Alderman Leahy.
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims.
Yes.
Alderman Weggie.
Yes.
Alderman Plufka. Absent.
He's not with us, so he can't vote this evening, unfortunately.
Okay.
Bill number.
Bill number 6131 is hereby passed by the Board of Aldermen upon signature by the mayor, becomes ordinance number 4780.
All right, thank you. Item 11B on the agenda is Bill number 6132. Mr. City Attorney, can we have second reading by title only, please?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Bill number 6132, second reading. An ordinance amending the zoning map of the city of Brentwood to rezone certain property numbered 1705 South Hanley Road from LID Light Industrial District to UD Urban Development and establishing the effective date of the ordinance.
Okay, and in lieu of the synopsis, I think I'll just say this is the same bill with respect to the APA property. So I'll entertain a motion to perfect.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the board perfect Bill number 6132. Is there any discussion by the board? Alderman Leahy.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have a question that I'm not 100% sure I have an answer for. In changing this zoning, if this-
Are you directing the question to the chair? Or?
I'm directing it to
Okay.
you, sir. I'm going to allow you to delegate it out.
All right. I'll probably have to.
In changing this zoning, currently the APA is an established business in the Brentwood area under the LID as a grandfathered in because we have nothing that allows them to be there as an accepted business practice in that district. If we change this zoning and we have another bill that says let's put an exemption in for them, and if that doesn't pass, are we forcing the APA out?
No. So you're combining two separate things. The first is the zoning of the property, and the second is the use of the property. Under the current zoning, which is LID, the APA's existing business is a non-conforming use.
And they're grandfathered in.
They're existing non-conforming.
Okay.
So they're an existing non-conforming use, okay? If we change the zoning of this property from LID to UD, they will be an existing non-conforming use in the UD.
So they get to stay?
Yes.
Even if the
Yes.
other?
This
Thank you,
has
Your
no
Honor.
effect at all on their permitted use.
I would hate to see it say that the city of Warmth threw out kittens and puppies. That's just not a good thing.
We
That's not a
run
good
no
thing.
such risk with this particular bill. Now, in the next bill, that's when we get into whether or not there'll be a permitted use or not. But
Thank you, Your Honor.
any other questions, discussion? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call, please.
Alderman Dennett.
Yes.
Alderman Kramer.
Yes.
Alderman Leahy.
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims.
Yes.
Alderman Weggie.
Yes.
Bill number 6132 is hereby passed by the Board of Aldermen and upon signature by the mayor becomes ordinance number 4781.
All right, thank you. Item number 11C on tonight's agenda is Bill number 6134. Mr. City Attorney, can we have second reading by title only, please?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Bill number 6134, second reading. An ordinance amending section 400.1400 relating to permitted uses in the urban development zoning district and establishing the effective date of this ordinance.
Thank you. And Alderman Kramer, synopsis, please.
Yes, Your Honor. The second reading for Bill number 6134, the amendment to section 400.1400 of the city's zoning ordinance related to permitted uses in the UD Urban Development Zoning District. And this bill covers an ordinance granting approval to amend that same section to add animal rescue, shelter, and adoption services including the provision of related services for those animals such as veterinary care, boarding, and other related services, as permitted use in the UD Urban Development Zoning District. The request for the UD District text amendment to add this permitted use was presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission at their April 12, 2017 meeting. The Commission voted at that time as follows: 6 in favor, 6 opposed to approve the text amendment. Therefore, that text amendment is presented to the Board of Aldermen without a favorable recommendation from the Commission. This is Bill number 6134.
All right, thank you. Chair would entertain a motion to perfect.
So moved.
Second, Your Honor.
It's been moved and seconded that the board perfect Bill number 6134 in an ordinance form. Is there any discussion? Alderwoman Sims.
I have a question. So what you described earlier with the, rezoning this a UD, if we don't vote for this language, the APA still gets to exist as it is, right?
Yeah.
And perhaps we could revisit that in the context of a comprehensive plan rather than identifying this unique parcel as to whether we should change our language just for this particular piece of property. Would we be saving that fight for another day potentially?
Yes. I mean, the answer to your question is yes. If we were to pass this ordinance, they would be a legal conforming use in the UD district. If we were to decline to pass this ordinance, they'll be an existing non-conforming use the same as they are now, just with a different zoning.
Okay. Thank you.
Alderman Dimmitt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not in support of this, and I'm loath when somebody votes no without giving any reason. I gave my reason last meeting, but I'm going to state it again just in case anyone doesn't remember what it was. First of all, it doesn't have a positive recommendation for planning and zoning. Secondly, when I was on P&Z for all those years, I cannot think of one instance where we did something like this. We would make a change to the definition or to the uses to accommodate somebody that wants to come in. That's not what we're dealing with here. They're already here. It's perfectly legal for them to be here as it is written. So with that being the case, that being the standard that I've followed for all these years, I'm not in support of this bill.
Thank you. Alderman Leahy.
Thank you, Your Honor. I will agree with Mr. Dimmitt. My only concern with this bill is by putting it in as a permitted in the UD. We do have areas that do back up closer to residential, but there's nothing in the definition here that would move this type of facility further away from a residential area so that we might eliminate some noise problems like we have with the current establishment down on Hanley Road to work with. I'd like to see the bill not pass, but I'd love to see the Planning and Zoning District take it up again and maybe tweak it even better and put some limitations on spacing as to how it would relate to residential areas and hopefully address that problem in it. And then maybe it could come back to us.
Alderman Lockmiller.
I'll be voting no also, and it's, as we're wanting to rezone more area UD where we allow more residential living within a commercial area, to have it interlaced with a dog facility or anything of that nature, I think the noise factor, and once again, as the last meeting I mentioned, another facility that was in our industrial area close to residential where the dog barking caused a problem. So I just can't see this interlaced together, so I'd be voting no.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call, please.
Alderman Dimmitt,
No.
Alderman Kramer,
No.
Alderman Leahy,
No.
Alderman Lockmiller,
No.
Alderwoman O'Neill,
No.
Alderwoman Sims,
No.
Alderman Weggie.
No.
All right, the bill is not passed, and so we will move on to item number 12 on the agenda. We don't have any bills to be given a first reading this evening. Item number 13 on the agenda is bills to be given a first and second reading. With respect to 13A, I believe that you have a clean and red line version, and this item was postponed at the, I believe it was the May 15th meeting to tonight. So there were some revisions made. That's why we're going back to a first and second reading of the amended ordinance. So Mr. City Attorney, can we have first reading by title only, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. First reading of Bill 6125.1, an ordinance repealing Article 16 of Chapter 215 of the Brentwood City Code concerning construction noise and amending sections 500.010, 500.020, and 500.080 of Chapter 500 of the Brentwood City Code concerning regulations governing construction.
Alderman Kramer, do we have a synopsis?
Yes, Your Honor. Amended Bill 6125.1 are first and second. This is the amendment to the chapters as submitted. Chapter 215 offenses, Article 16 offenses involving hours of construction, and Chapter 500 building and building regulations, Article 1 in general, to determine reasonable enforcement of construction hours and if construction activities are occurring outside of those prescribed construction hours. Our city's Code of Ordinances includes restrictions on construction hours, and presently, the code addresses construction hours in two sections of the code, Chapter 215 offenses, Article 16, offenses involving hours of construction, and Chapter 500 buildings and regulations, and that is Article 1 in general, Section 500.020 construction hours. Those two sections state different hours of construction and contradict each other presently, therefore, one of the sections must be deleted. Additionally, there needs to be a clearer understanding of what constitutes construction activity in order to determine if construction is occurring outside of the city's prescribed construction hours, and therefore a violation of the code has occurred. The proposed amendments to Chapter 500 would define construction activity as, quote, any activity which progresses or contributes to the completion of the construction on the job site. Such activities shall include but are not limited to operation or use of tools or equipment, collecting debris and or cleaning up the job site, making deliveries, unquote. Our Public Works Committee unanimously recommended approval on the amendments to Chapter 215 and 500, all contained within the language of amended Bill 6125.1.
All right, thank you. Lisa Kirkemeyer, would you care to come up? I think you've addressed this before, but it's been a little while, so.
Sure. Yes, so again, the only thing that was really in two sections of the code dealing with construction activity were prescribed construction hours, when they could actually operate. So the first recommendation was to go ahead and remove one of the sections. So we want to delete the section that refers to construction hours that's found in Chapter 215. So just maybe to clarify then, we're keeping the hours as they've been in the ordinance then for a long time. Not sure how long, but we're not actually switching the hours of construction. So those would continue to be the prescribed construction hours, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. until 6 p.m., and then on Saturdays from 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. Now again, this is for construction hours related to three different scenarios. This would be applied to, this is applied citywide, but it's applied to all jobs that would be residential new construction. It would also include any type of renovations to existing dwellings that exceed 50% of their habitable space. Also in residential where room additions, the work exceeds 20% of any floor on which the addition is constructed, and all commercial construction. Again, that has not changed. That's exactly what our ordinance says now. So I did want to mention that though, because it does mean for someone who's doing their home improvement projects or something, this does not apply. Then the last, I think, well, there's a few other tweaks, but the main one then again was what was read in the synopsis, and that was to better define what construction activity was. It was just very subjective, kind of loose, up to interpretation. So that's why we came up with some things, and those are based upon really what the exact complaints that we were given our office has taken. And most of that, again, is making deliveries or cleaning up the job site. So that's why we tried to strengthen that part of the code so that everybody, contractors as well as residents, know what the rules are. And then the last amendment also deals with what was already brought up earlier about ultimately the general contractor or the homeowner could be held liable for any subs that aren't following the rule. So just to clarify again, a truck who's making deliveries before the prescribed hours could be ticketed. They could actually then eventually maybe be summoned to come to court. So subcontractors or those violating the ordinance could be, again, subject to court penalty. But ultimately, again, if the subcontractors are not the only ones that could be found in violation, ultimately it could be the general contractors or homeowners. So That's the major amendments.
Are there questions for Director Kirkmeyer? Alderman Dimmitt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, this is for, I guess, maybe for the city attorney. The new language, the proposed new language from our last meeting, page 3 of 4, the general contractor, comma, and in the case of residential properties, the property owner, comma, shall be jointly and severally responsible for complying with the provisions. My question is, as it's written, I'm a little confused. The general contractor, if it's not residential property, so we're not dealing with the property owner, the general contractor shall be jointly and severally responsible with whom? Is there somebody else that,
Property owner.
but that's just it, there's no, it's a, and in the case of residential properties, the property owner, but that, so the property owner is only in the case of residential properties, but this applies to commercial properties as well.
Right, I would
Mr.
say.
City Attorney, would you like me to say it for you? Damn attorneys.
There
I mean, really. No, I'm sorry. I'm giving Alderman Dimmitt a hard time. Go ahead.
There probably should be some tweaking there. I mean, you could say the general contractor shall be responsible for, and in the case of residential properties, both the contractor and the property
Okay.
owner shall be. I think
Okay.
that'd probably be a better way of saying it.
Yeah, and I wasn't criticizing, I just was a little confused, and I do personal injury. I don't do this kind of stuff, so I'm not sure how this
That
all
was a
works.
good catch.
Okay.
The reference, the shall be jointly and severally responsible. Again, that was so that we were allowed to take issue with the subcontractor.
No, I
Yeah,
agree
okay.
with that. It was just the
Now,
way that it was
now would be a
worded.
fine time to offer an amendment if you thought that was,
Well, I would make an amendment to 6125.1, Section 4, Section 500.080, to add the language that our most knowledgeable city attorney recommended.
Second.
it's been moved and seconded that that language be added to the bill as an amendment. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Alderman Kramer, I apologize.
That's all right, Your Honor. Just a question. So the general contractor, for example, at a commercial site, the owner of that commercial site is one of the ones that would be liable as well. Is that correct or no?
Not the way this is written.
Just the general. But if it's a home, it would be the, okay.
That's correct.
All good? Any further discussion?
Thank you.
All right, voting on the amendment only, the offered amendment by Alderman Dimmitt. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, so on the table before the board now is questions about the bill as amended. Any further questions? Lisa, don't go away yet. Alderman Wiggy is waving you back to the podium. Alderman Wiggy.
Maybe, maybe not. So what do you think about Mr. Goodwin's thought about deliveries and things that maybe not direct subcontractors? Do you have any thoughts on what he
I
talked
think
about?
what we've, what this has been on the books for quite a while in Brentwood, and this is pretty aligned to a lot of other municipalities in our area. So I know that, for instance, stores, again, that would be making deliveries and so forth, I mean, they probably are itching to get out there, to make deliveries at 6 o'clock, but if they know what the rules are, then they should really be abiding by those. Maybe they have to alter their delivery schedules or something then to accommodate those communities that would have prescribed construction hours, so.
So I went on a fact-finding mission to Home Depot today. I ate 2 hot dogs, and then I went and talked to the professional services people. But, basically asked, is there any way to guarantee that you would not deliver before 7 o'clock? And when I kind of told them what we were doing, and they said, we start at 6, right? We got to get out there, and we manage all the deliveries in this area. They did say that you can pay extra to get 2-hour windows of guaranteed delivery, but it's 2-hour blocks. So the earliest block you could get would be 8 to 10. That would guarantee that you're after 7, which means, if you have workers showing up at 7 o'clock to start working, it's possible that your goods would not show up until 10. Maybe that's a function of the ordinance not being written clearly before, but is this happening? My concern is that our contractors are going to try and follow this. In the case of their subcontractors, their laborers, they absolutely can control that. You're calling Home Depot, I can see why they would not listen to your request or not honor your request to get to this. And I'm just concerned we're going to put our contractors in a untenable position to meet this.
Well, Alderman Leahy.
What would you consider in the way of organizing and scheduling your work, that you have your material coming in the day before. It can come in at any time during that workday, which allows you then to have it on site and move from there. That's part of your responsibility as a general contractor. If you understand the city requirements, then you work your work accordingly to do it. Not everybody is gonna follow the rules. At 6 a.m., if my guy shows up delivering, does the city have an inspector sitting at the site ready to take a complaint? Resident's gonna call, I assume, the Brentwood, and probably get forwarded over to ECDC that says, I've got a complaint, can you send a police officer? I'm gonna hope that that police officer is gonna use discretion and maybe look to work through that one problem. But if it becomes repetitive, I would expect him to ticket. And thus the subcontractor and the general contractor are gonna be held responsible to cooperating with the city.
Okay, I'm gonna call time out here because we're getting into discussion, which would actually be after the second reading of the bill. So do we have any questions at this point? And believe me, I'm not wanting to cut off discussion, but I don't want to have the discussion again, so.
Gotcha.
Alderman Sims, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Wouldn't the delivery people be violating this ordinance and therefore be subject to being ticketed? I mean, I don't think that Home Depot has the discretion to decline to follow an ordinance if it applies to them.
They could be ticketed. The person that's making the physical delivery could get ticketed.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. City Attorney, can we have the second reading by title only, please?
Second reading of Bill 6125.1, an ordinance repealing Article 16 of Chapter 215 of the Brentwood City Code concerning construction noise and amending sections 500.10, 500.020, and 500.080 of Chapter 500 of the Brentwood City Code concerning regulations governing construction.
All right, thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to perfect.
Your Honor, I'd like to make the motion to perfect Bill 6125.1 as amended into ordinance form.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded the board perfect bill number 6125.1 as amended. Is there any discussion?
I have some.
Alderman Weggie.
So I went to Home Depot, I ate 3 hot dogs.
Were any of those hot dogs charged to the city as part of your fact finding? Okay, thank you.
So to follow up on Sonny's question, I don't believe Home Depot could be ticketed in this case. It's the general contractor or the homeowner that would be held accountable if they delivered early.
No, that's not how the ordinance reads as I read it. The party who is breaking the ordinance can be ticketed, and the homeowner and or general contractor can also be held liable.
Yes.
So the idea, this is what I was going to say before, and I know I shouldn't talk during discussion, but I have to say this. It's holding the general contractor liable is just giving you a bigger stick, because the general contractor pays the sub. And if the sub breaks the ordinance and doesn't pay the fine or do whatever, right, then the general is in the best position to ensure the compliance of the sub. I mean, that's all there is to it. And your point's well taken with respect to can you actually do it, but if not them, who? I mean, that's the point. So we're holding the parties themselves. We're holding Home Depot liable for violating our ordinance. But at the end of the day, if that doesn't work, we're simply giving ourselves more leverage by holding the general contractor liable as well, in the cases where his subs just won't comply. And you know, look, conscientious contractors like Mr. Goodwin are all over the place, right? But there are also ones who don't care. And they give us the same story, that they tried, oh man, I told them, you know, and baloney. They just, you know, they want the house built and they don't care. So they use that as cover, right? And so what we're doing is trying to put them on our team to say, hey, you know, my butt's in the sling when you guys screw up. And there's really, if you think about it all the way through, there's really no other way to do this. You either do it or don't do it. But I can tell you we haven't been very successful in not doing it because we get repeat offenders by some people. I will also say that Lisa's department is absolutely fantastic at working through voluntary compliance. And that is absolutely the goal here. Look, writing tickets and getting people to court is absolutely a last resort, and her department does a fantastic job of working with people, making, look, at the end of the day, all we really care about is that the neighborhood's quiet, and they do a fantastic job of making that happen. Alderman Dillon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just by way of quick background, I met with Lisa months ago about making some changes to these ordinances, the construction ordinances. And what was being brought to my attention is that a lot of the subs, if they were being ticketed, nothing ever happened. And it was an enforcement issue, and so my thought was, well, what if we had some type of a strict liability for the general contractor, so that they're policing the industry themselves, they're policing the job site, and because the subcontractor might not really have any control, but we tell the general contractor, look, you're going to be responsible for this, and these folks, even though they're subs, even though they're independent contractors, you're going to be held responsible if they violate one of these laws. So we didn't do anything to change the responsibility of the subs, the delivery people, anything like that. All we did was add another layer to it by coming up with a strict liability for the owners, for the general contractors. As far as the delivery is concerned, all I would say in response to that is, my view is let the marketplace dictate to this. So if you have a delivery person that refuses to comply with these delivery hours, but as long as we're enforcing this at the general contractor level, then the general contractor, after enough tickets, I would think at some point the general contractor is going to say, you know what, we're going to find somebody else because I'm tired of getting hit with these tickets. And again, that's kind of the philosophy behind that. I understand you might be dealing with a contractor, or a sub that is so large, they don't care about one or two job sites. That's fine. But there are others, there's competition out there, and these general contractors do have choices.
Alderman Kramer.
Yes, Your Honor. I welcome the changes proposed in this amendment, specifically having to do with one of the noise provisions, which I'll mention in a moment. But there are a couple tenants. One, the construction guidelines need to be and shall be posted at the site for all to view. The second one addresses a lot of the concerns we've heard here in the last few minutes, Your Honor, and that is that the job site is to be secured from the close of the operation at the appointed hour to the open at 7 a.m. the next morning. If it's approached before that job site is open, that's the responsibility of the homeowner in the homeowner's case, or the general contractor in their case. For example, the next question is, what happens if the delivery driver comes before 7 o'clock? The job site is secured as it should be. He can't enter as he should not and should not be able to. So then what happens with the sound of his diesel truck? That's one of the nice things about this new provision, Your Honor, is that before it used to be diesel noise could not be heard from the job site. Now it cannot be audible from off the job site. So if there is a concrete truck, for example, sitting at 6:30 and he wants to drink his coffee for half an hour, the resident shouldn't have to listen to that diesel for the half hour as well. They can call the police. Ideally, the police write a ticket. So I'm in favor of all the enhancements provided by this bill, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any further discussion of the bill? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call, please.
Alderman Demmett.
Yes.
Alderman Kramer.
Yes.
Alderman Leahy.
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims.
Yes.
Alderman Weggie.
No.
As a vote of 6-1, bill number 6125.1 is hereby passed by the Board of Aldermen and upon signature by the mayor becomes ordinance number 4782.
All right, and just to be clear, that's 6125.1 as amended.
As amended.
Very good. Item number 13B is bill number 6133.1. And before I have our city attorney make the first and second reading, we have actually seen this bill before, but it was pointed out by Alderman Leahy quite correctly that some of the site development documents that were part of the bill were not fully up to date. So you've received an amended version?
Yes.
And they are now, I believe, fully up to date. So that is why we are doing a first and second reading on this bill, just to make sure we have all our bases covered. So with that, Mr. City Attorney, could we have 6133.1 by title only, please?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. First reading of Bill 6133.1, an ordinance granting approval of a site development plan and conditional use permit to EQH Brentwood LLC for development of a 7-story hotel at property numbered 1693 and 1695 South Hanley Road under the provisions of Title 4, Chapter 400 of the Brentwood Code of Ordinances, providing the conditions of such development and providing for the effective date of this ordinance.
Thank you. Alderman Kramer, could I have a synopsis?
Surely, Your Honor. This is Bill 6133.1. This is the red line version, our second reading only. And this is
Actually, this is
first and second reading only, amending the synopsis of bills and resolutions on the fly here. Site plan and conditional use permit to EQH Brentwood LLC at property numbered 1693 and 1695 South Hanley Road here in Brentwood. The bill grants conditional use permit status and site plan approval to allow EQH Brentwood LLC to construct a 7-story hotel and parking garage. That structure to be located at 1693 and 1695 South Hanley Road. Hotel is an extended stay hotel, including 128 units and a total floor area of 76,796 square feet for the hotel. That project includes a covered parking structure, a basement level and 3 additional parking levels, and a total floor area of 53,817 square feet. Our Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed the conditional use permit and site development plan at the May 10th, 2017 meeting and voted in this way: 12 in favor, 0 opposed, to approve the conditional use permit and site plan with conditions. This is bill number 6133.1, our first and second reading for the red line version.
All right, thank you. We have already had, as I said, a full question and answer period on this bill, so if there are any burning questions, but as I said, nothing has changed from our first reading previous except the fact that the bill has been amended for the site plan. So are there any questions? Okay, Alderman Lockman.
And you may be able to answer this, Your Honor. Is the developer also going to be the operator?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, Mr. City Attorney, can we have second reading by title only, please?
Yes, Mayor. Second reading of Bill 6133.1, an ordinance granting approval of a site development plan and conditional use permit to EQH Brentwood LLC for development of a 7-story hotel at property numbered 1693 and 1695 South Hanley Road under the provisions of Title 4, Chapter 400 of the Brentwood Code of Ordinances, providing for the conditions of such development and providing for the effective date of this ordinance.
Thank you, sir, and the chair would entertain a motion to perfect.
So moved. Second, Your Honor.
It's been moved and seconded that the board perfect bill number 6133.1. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call, please.
Alderman Demmett,
Yes.
Alderman Kramer,
Yes.
Alderman Leahy,
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller,
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill,
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims,
Yes.
Alderman Weggie.
Yes.
Bill number 6133.1 is hereby passed by the Board of Aldermen and upon signature by the mayor will become ordinance number 4783.
Thank you.
Your Honor.
Yes.
May I please ask if we have an updated projected start and completion date for this project? Proposed start and or completion?
Can, unless Bola knows, do you know, Bola?
I do not.
Can we get back to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bola, get back to us on that. So we got 13C, bill number 6138. We get first and second reading. Mr. City Attorney, first reading by title only, please.
Thank you, Mayor. First reading of Bill 6138, an ordinance of the City of Brentwood, Missouri authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator to enter into and execute an agreement between the City of Brentwood, Missouri and NB West Contracting and providing for the effective date of this ordinance.
Okay, Alderman Kramer, can we have a synopsis?
Surely, Your Honor. Bill number 6138, our first and second reading for the fiscal year 2017 Asphalt Streets Mill and Overlay Project for the City of Brentwood. And this covers that ordinance authorizing our mayor and/or city administrator to enter into and execute a contract between the city and NB West Contracting for that full year and fiscal year 2017 asphalt project 25 streets and the South Promenade entrance additional. Public Works Committee made a unanimous recommendation that the request be forwarded to the Board of Aldermen for their approval of NB West Contracting and the agreement for the fiscal year 2017 asphalt projects in the amount of $588,070.26, and bid alternate number 3, South Promenade entrance, in the amount of $36,930, and request for the first and second reading of the ordinance at our meeting here this evening. And the expectation the project be completed in a 45-week period. This is bill number 6138.
All right, thank you. And do we have any questions? I know we already had a chance to ask Dan some questions if they did. So if the board doesn't have any questions, I'm going to ask our city attorney to have second reading by title only, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Second reading of Bill 6138, an ordinance of the City of Brentwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator to enter into and execute an agreement between the City of Brentwood, Missouri, and MB West Contracting, and providing for the effective date of this ordinance.
All right, thank you. And the chair would entertain a motion to perfect.
Perfect Bill 6138 into ordinance form, please.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the board perfect bill number 6138 into ordinance form. Do we have any discussion? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call, please.
Alderman Demmett,
Yes.
Alderman Kramer,
Yes.
Alderman Leahy,
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller,
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill,
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims,
Yes.
Alderman Weggie.
Yep.
Bill number 6138 is hereby passed by the Board of Aldermen, and upon signature of the mayor, will become ordinance number 4784.
All right, thank you. Item 13D is bill number 6139. Mr. City Attorney, could we have first reading by title only, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First reading of Bill 6139, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator to enter into and execute an agreement on behalf of the City of Brentwood, Missouri, with Precision Analysis, Inc., and providing for the effective date of this ordinance.
All right, thank you. Alderman Kramer, synopsis.
Surely, Your Honor. Bill number 6139, our first and second reading for the hazardous materials assessment and third-party monitoring, covers an ordinance authorizing our mayor and our city administrator to enter into and execute an agreement on behalf of the city with Precision Analysis Incorporated. Our Public Works Committee made a unanimous recommendation that the request be forwarded to the Board of Aldermen for the approval of Precision Analysis for the hazardous materials assessment and third-party monitoring of the houses situated on 3 city-owned parcels located at 8751 Eulalie Avenue, roughly across from the fire department, 8754 Rosalie Avenue, the Historical Society building, and 8758 Rosalie Avenue, that's the home just east of the U.S. Post Office, and a request for the first and second reading of the ordinance at tonight's meeting. Bill number 6139.
All right, thank you. And same deal, do we have any questions, or are we ready to move to a second reading? Mr. City Attorney, can we have second reading by title only, please?
Yes, Mayor. Second reading of Bill 6139, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator to enter into and execute an agreement on behalf of the City of Brentwood, Missouri, with Precision Analysis Incorporated, and providing for the effective date of this ordinance.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to perfect.
So moved, Your Honor.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the board perfect bill number 6139 in ordinance form. Do we have any discussion? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call, please.
Alderman Demmett,
Yes.
Alderman Kramer,
Yes.
Alderman Leahy,
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller,
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill,
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims,
Yes.
Alderman Weggie.
Yes.
Bill number 6139 is hereby passed by the Board of Aldermen, and upon signature by the mayor, will become ordinance number 4785.
All right, thank you. Item number 14 on tonight's agenda, we don't have any resolutions for the open meeting this evening. Item number 15, accounts against the city. Alderman Demmett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've had an opportunity to go over the warrant list with staff, and I would recommend approval of the warrant list in the amount of $180,104.39.
Your Honor, if I may, point of order.
What's your point?
Section number 14 calls for a resolution. We did have resolution 1077 in the packet.
I said there were no resolutions for the open part of the meeting this evening.
Ah, thank you, Your Honor. I didn't know that that was going to go that way. All right.
It is.
Thank you, sir. I stand corrected.
Alderman Dimmitt has moved the...
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the warrant list be approved as submitted. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Dimmitt.
Yes.
Alderman Kramer.
Yes.
Alderman Leahy.
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims.
Yes.
Alderman Weggie.
Yes.
All right, the resolution is passed and the bills can be paid. Item number 16 on the agenda, reports of committees and department heads. Under my report, in the interest of brevity, I said we'd be in closed session by 8:30, and I wasn't kidding. I have some appointments to make, but I'm going to ask the board for some help. We have a couple of, we have at least one space on our architectural review board that's open. And as you know, the current ordinance provides for the architectural review board to be composed of licensed architects who live in Brentwood. That is actually a tall order, folks. I asked the board themselves for recommendations, and they literally couldn't think of anybody who hasn't already served or is currently serving. So I would ask the board to either make recommendations to me of people that I'm not aware of, or to consider taking up at the appropriate committee, and I believe that would be Public Works Committee, amending that ordinance to something that's rational. Maybe including licensed architects that have businesses in Brentwood, or licensed architects that live or work in the Brentwood or the surrounding communities. Give me something to work with here, folks, because I really, honestly, I think our ARB does a great job, and I think it's preferable to what Clayton has, where they've codified everything. But if we can't get good people to serve on the commission, then or the board, it's going to be really hard to continue to have it. So that's my report and my request to the board. Public Safety Committee, Alderman Dimmitt is not with us, so would Alderwoman Sims care to make a report? Sorry. Did I say Dimmitt? Alderman Plufka is not with us. Would Alderwoman Sims care to make a report?
I have no report.
Very good. Well done. Public Works, Alderman Lockmiller.
Our next Public Works meeting will be here July 12th at 4:30.
All right, Public Works, July 12th. Director of Planning and Development.
No report, Mayor.
And Ways and Means, Alderman Dimmitt, who is, by the way, here.
I am. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our next Ways and Means meeting will be July 6, 2017 at 6 p.m., where I believe we're going to start looking at the budget
Absolutely.
for 2018.
It's never too early to start budgeting. Mr. City Attorney.
No report.
Thank you. Madam City Administrator.
No report.
All right. Madam Excise Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have reviewed a total of 26 different licensees who have applied for renewal of their liquor licenses. There were 8 different types of the 26 that were up for renewal. I would recommend that those applications be approved.
Did you follow Alderman Weggie's example and personally go to each of these establishments?
I
don't
I was gonna say all I did was
I'm
eat
still the
hot dogs,
deputy.
but I don't think anyone would believe me if I went into OB Clark
if
that
not,
way.
I'm sure Alderman Weggie would be happy to take you on a ride.
Yes, I have at one point or another personally visited all of them.
Very good. It's been moved.
Seconded. Your
Moved
Honor.
and seconded that the board approve the liquor license renewals as submitted. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the renewals, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? All right, all 26 licenses are renewed as submitted. I think we also have some temporary permits.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There were 4 different temporary liquor license special use permit applications for Madden Fest / Brentwood days, depending on how the applicant
Depending on when the board's going to give me a resolution.
characterized the event, and I would recommend approval of each of those special use permit applications.
Seconded, Your Honor.
It's been moved and seconded that the board grant these special use permits for the 4 applications as submitted. Is there any discussion on those? Seeing none, all in favor of granting the special use permits as applied, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Very good. Those special use permits are granted. Madam Library Liaison.
No report.
And I have nothing from the Municipal League, and I don't think we have anything from the Historical Society. Great. Do we have any announcements? Alderman Leahy.
Ward 3 meeting for the month of June will be Tuesday night, the 26th, here at 7 o'clock. All are invited. Thank you, Your Honor.
Any other announcements?
Certainly.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Ward 4's meeting will be tomorrow night at 6 o'clock in the Brentwood Forest Clubhouse.
Ward
Everyone's
4,
invited.
tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, Brentwood Forest Clubhouse. Be there or be square. Anybody else? All right, do we have any new business this evening? Alderman Leahy?
I'd like to request that the city consider converting the Brentwood Days or Madden Fest Festival back to Brentwood Days as the official title. I don't know if we need a resolution to do that or not, but can we ask that the board direct staff to look into it and have it done?
You could probably just do it on a motion if you wanted.
Your Honor, I'd like to make a motion to officially re-recognize the community days in September as Brentwood Days instead of Madden Fest Days.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the board rename the community festival held in September, traditionally referred to as Madden Fest, or currently referred to as Madden Fest, as Brentwood Days. Is there any discussion? Alderman Weggie.
Could somebody walk us through the history of why it was changed? I mean, it began as Madden Fest, I believe.
Alderman Leahy, I'm sure, can do
Sure he
that.
can. I would appreciate it.
Golf Mall 101 started the Brentwood Day for things as Madden Fest, and then the city took it over and moved it down to Brentwood Park, at which time we named it Brentwood Days. With the passing of Ward 4 Alderman Luane Cruson, it was requested that the city entertain changing it from Brentwood Days back to Madden Fest Days, for Mrs. Cruson had a preference for that title at the time, prior to her passing. And we did that 6 years ago, I believe, is where we are. This would be the sixth summer to work with.
That's right.
To go after. And then working it back, since it is a little confusing. A side note is the year that we did change it from Brentwood Days back to Madden Fest Days, the Historical Society had a booth at Brentwood Days in which they gave out their ball caps. And on the ball cap, it says, not Madden Fest anymore. And then we changed it back to Madden.
Alderman Kramer.
Yes, Your Honor. I worked with Alderwoman Cruson for a number of years before she passed. And my understanding was that she was an integral part in some of the concept and orchestration of the event. My thought process was when we made the change from Brentwood Days to Madden Fest, I think ideally there could have been a sunset clause at that time for the recognition for a period of time. We didn't do it. I do feel that the amount of time that has passed is respectful recognition of her services as an alderperson and her involvement in the original Madden Fest. However, I can say as a current representative of residents who are seemingly more happy with the term Brentwood Days, I would be supportive of this change.
Any further discussion? Alderman Wiggy.
So thank you very much for the history. I think, that the fact that it started as Madden Fest and that, we honored Alderwoman Cruson by moving it back, which was her desire. And she certainly had a lot of history and understanding of Brentwood. I've always been a big fan of the Madden Fest. I think it is a great homage to our our beginnings as a town as we repelled the Maplewood encroachers and really forged the Brentwood spirit. I believe it should stay as Madden Fest. I think it's a great opportunity to talk about why is it called Madden Fest. I think people it has maybe been confusing flipping it back and forth between Madden Fest and Brentwood Days, but I think it's unique and I like it. So I'm not in favor of changing it.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Well, my opinion is with the centennial coming up where we're celebrating Brentwood being incorporated, that we start looking at branding ourselves, and Brentwood Days is where we promote Brentwood. And I think it's just kind of confusing to have Madden Fest and Brentwood Days. So I think at this point would be probably a good starting point for that centennial celebration to start going back to Brentwood days. Thank you.
Any further discussion on Alderman Leahy's motion? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call, please. Voting in favor would be to change Madden Fest to Brentwood days. Voting against would be to retain Madden Fest.
Effective this year.
Effective this year, yeah, provided there's time to do that on a practical level. Eric, do you need to go to the restroom?
Yeah.
So, effective as practical.
I'm not speechless. Am I ever speechless? The one thing I would say is that we tried very hard to brand it Brentwood's annual Madden Fest to make sure we got Brentwood's name in it. The one thing I'll say is we have started promotional material primarily for vendors. Would the change be confusing this year? Probably not. But, I mean, promotional materials have gotten out. I mean, I think parade applications, vendor application, all that has gone out with Brentwood's annual Madden Fest. Again, some of the vendors have come back and said Brentwood days. So, again, you know, it is the wish of the board.
Okay. Very good. We'll have a roll call, please.
Alderman Demmett,
Yes.
Alderman Kramer,
Yes.
Alderman Leahy,
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller,
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill,
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims,
Yes.
Alderman Weggie.
Nope.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, do we have any further new business? Seeing none. Hearing of any matter of public interest upon the request of any person present. If anyone would like to come forward and address the board, please state your name. You'll be given 3 minutes. There's a lot less people in here than when we started.
Yes.
We're not really keeping our audiences riveted, I don't think. All right, seeing none. Item number 20 on tonight's agenda. I'd entertain a motion to go into a closed session.
So moved.
And could we make that motion to go into closed session effective 8:45?
So moved.
For purposes?
For purposes of, legal, RSMO 610-21-1, real estate, RSMO 610-21-2, and personnel, RSMO 610-21-3.
Second, Your Honor.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call, please.
Alderman Demmett,
Yes.
Alderman Kramer,
Yes.
Alderman Leahy,
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller,
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill,
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims,
Yes.
Alderman Weggie.
Yes.
Your
All
Honor,
right.
will we be adjourning? from
We will
our
adjourn from closed session, so you don't have to go home, but there's nothing more to see here. We will adjourn from closed session.
Thank you, Your Honor.